Let me set the stage for you. I'm 22, just finished my master's degree, and I've got a story to tell that's going to haunt you. I was about 12 when I first got access to my dad's old laptop. He worked in tech, so I guess he thought it would be good for me to get familiar with computers early. Fast forward a few years, and during high school, I heard some weird rumors from a group of kids about something called the dark web, or as most of you probably know it, the deep web. Apparently, there were places on the internet where you could find anything at all. So, I did what anyone would do. I started digging. I quickly stumbled into the world of proxy sites, IP masking hacks, and all sorts of ways to slip through locked doors of the internet. By the time I hit my late teens, I was deep into the rabbit hole. I spent hours on online forums, places like Raddot, talking to people who were just as obsessed with the dark corners of the web as I was. It was my thing. I didn't have many friends in real life, so the internet became my home. I learned how to blend in, how to keep my online presence under the radar. I had 3 online aliases. Only one close friend, Nathan, knew they were all me. He was deep into the dark web too, probably more than I was even. We didn't know each other's last names, and that's how we both liked it. We trusted each other with stuff that most people wouldn't understand. Nathan knew more about me than anyone else, and I trusted him more than anyone I'd ever met. But trust me when I say that what I'm about to tell you, he knows more about this than he probably should. When I went to university, I shared a dorm with a local drug dealer. This guy, expelled for reasons nobody ever really looked into, helped me with something I had learned to do: order drugs online. It was ridiculously easy to get MDMA, X, or whatever else you wanted delivered straight to my dorm's P.O. box. My friend would sell it for me since I didn't have many connections of my own. It felt like I was untouchable. If no one could trace my IP, then I was invincible, right? By my second year, things got darker. I found myself stumbling into some seriously messed up parts of the dark web, stuff that would turn your stomach. People were sharing videos so vile, they made even the most twisted content look tame. That's when I learned to stick to the links Nathan and I trusted. Places I knew were safe to explore. But there was one thing. No matter how much the government shut down the big sites like Silk Road, there were always smaller, hidden ones that slipped under the radar. Hackers were always on the lookout for them, asking me for advice on where to score. It was easy to point them in the right direction. By my 3rd year, I was becoming pretty skilled at this. I had a long screen set up for decryption, making it easier for me to crack site codes. It was then that I ventured into some seriously disturbing territory. I had even talked to some of the admins running these sites, people who, on the surface, seemed perfectly normal. But what they were hiding behind the scenes was anything but. And then, one day, something changed. Nathan and I got into a chat room with a guy who had found a site that no one could access. They said it was encrypted beyond belief, something that not even the best hackers could crack. It sounded like a challenge, so naturally, I joined in. But when I finally got through, what I found made me question everything. What I saw on that site was something so disturbing, it left a scar on me that I'll never be able to erase. It was a part of the web that shouldn't exist. And the name of the site? It was called Cold Body. I can't show you the link, and I won't. I don't want to bring attention to it, but I will warn you. It was the most twisted, vile corner of the dark web you could imagine. The stuff people were doing on there? You can't unsee it. Trust me. Nathan and I tried for hours to get through to the site, and we were getting nowhere. The encryption was insane, but somehow we finally cracked it. Then everything went quiet. Nathan muted his mic, which was strange for us. We never did that. I thought he was just stepping away for a minute, but when I returned, something felt off. The code I was working on had changed. It was unencrypted, and the site had opened up like a trap. I shouldn't have kept going. I should have closed it and walked away. But I didn't. The site finally loaded, but it wasn't what I expected. The screen was filled with red text that said, "If you have made it this far, you know what you are in for. If you still don't, you don't belong here." And then a simple prompt popped up, YN. At that moment, everything in me screamed to turn away. But I couldn't. I accepted. I stared at the second chat window as it lit up. At first, I didn't know what to make of it. Maybe it was just an IP relay or some hidden app behind the site. The window had a strange prompt, /insert name, along with an optional password. It hit me then, this site might actually have accounts. That was unsettling. I used my most recent alias, Diablos Hakshna. The chat window loaded and it was basic, no ads, no frills, just dark red text. It felt eerily familiar, like something out of those strange, anonymous forums I used to visit. I was starting to calm down, thinking this might just be some bizarre cult or secret forum. It looked so normal, even though everything about it screamed obscure. But then the first window flickered, coming to life. It began loading a video. A snuff film? It felt like it, but something didn't add up. I tried to ask the others in the chat, "What are we here for?" hoping to blend in. But no one responded. Just as I was getting anxious, the video began playing. I was alone in my dorm, the silence almost deafening, with only the ambient noise from the video filling the room. The footage started blurry, but soon cleared to reveal a dimly lit basement. A man stepped into view, holding up a whiteboard with the word cold body written on it. He spoke in a language I didn't understand, but thankfully another man who spoke broken English introduced the scene saying, "Hello users, welcome Cold Body Show." At first, I thought maybe this was just some messed up performance. But then the mood shifted. The man speaking in English suddenly broke down in tears, sobbing uncontrollably. Before I could process what was happening, a third person entered, holding a gun. Without warning, the gunshot rang out. The camera zoomed in, capturing the brutal aftermath. Blood sprayed across the screen. People in the chat were commenting, urging for more. I was paralyzed, realizing that I wasn't watching a video. I was witnessing a live stream of real violence. I typed, "You sick fucks," and "What the hell is wrong with you?" But my messages were drowned out in a flood of foreign text. Another victim was dragged in front of the camera, this time, a woman, bruised and crying. She tried to break free from her restraints, but it was too late. The camera zoomed in again, showing her lifeless body. The chat erupted in cheers, and someone repositioned the camera to reveal a table covered with a plastic sheet. Her body was dragged across the floor, ready for whatever horrors awaited next. I can't bring myself to describe what happened next. You've been warned. The body was laid out on the table, like a grisly mockery of an operating room. People in red and black ski masks moved toward the lifeless form, carrying various tools, kitchen knives, drills, things that didn't belong in a place like this. I was sick to my stomach, but I couldn't look away. They started cutting, tearing her apart, and I could barely process what I was seeing. I glanced at the screen again and saw something that I wish I hadn't. A man was doing something unspeakable to the mutilated body. My stomach turned, and I had to fight the urge to vomit, but somehow I managed to keep control. My heart raced in panic. I realized I was in way over my head. What I was witnessing was beyond anything I could have imagined. By the time they finished, there was nothing left of her, just a gruesome mess. But I stayed. I don't know why. Maybe I'd seen other disturbing stuff before, and it had hardened me to the worst of it. But this was different. 3 more people were brought into view. They were terrified, struggling against their restraints, pleading for their lives. One of them was shot in the leg. The others froze, shaking. The man holding the sign stepped closer to the camera and stared directly into the lens. His eyes were dark, and his face was splattered with blood. My breath quickened, and for a second it felt like he was looking right at me. He spoke in a language I didn't understand, but his gaze, it sent chills down my spine.
The chat exploded with messages. Then, to my horror, they started mentioning me and Nathan by our usernames. It was like they were targeting us specifically. I panicked, trying to close the windows, but they wouldn't respond. The live stream kept going, the man still staring into the camera, and the chat demanding that I speak up. One message in English caught my eye. "Which one should we kill first?" I froze. My mind was racing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't care anymore. I just needed out. I pulled the plug on my computer, yanked it from the wall. The screen went black, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread. I spent the rest of the night pacing around my apartment, too shaken to sleep, too traumatized to do anything. The next 2 days felt like a blur. I tried to talk to a few friends about what happened, but I only told them that I'd seen something disturbing. They didn't press me for details. After all, they knew about the kind of stuff I'd stumbled across online before. But this was different. The kind of different that keeps you up at night. When I finally worked up the courage to turn my computer back on, I was relieved to see there were no signs of any viruses, no black windows on my desktop. But then I noticed a message from Nathan. A few files were attached, and I thought maybe we could finally talk about what we'd just witnessed. But when I opened the files, my heart sank. The attachments were photos of me, photos taken from my Facebook, my email, even from my old school and university, my addresses, my IP address, my aliases, all of it was there. And then I saw the last photo, one of me with my ex-girlfriend, with her information pasted over it. The realization hit me hard. I was being watched. These people had found me. They knew everything. I sat there, frozen, my hands shaking. I wrote back, desperate for answers. What the fuck happened? Who are you? But I never got a reply. To this day, I've never heard from Nathan again. The only thing I know for sure is that whoever has that information, whoever has those photos, they're not the kind of people you want coming after you. I can't let them find me, and I can't let them find anyone I care about. I've learned the hard way. There are parts of the internet you should never go near. The police can't help you. They can't find them. But they can find you. If you're thinking about going onto the deep web, just remember, no one is really invisible. Not even me. Do yourself a favor. Stay away from the dark corners of the internet. You don't want to know what's waiting there.
I never paid much attention to the dark web. To me, it was just one of those creepy corners of the internet where legends thrive and stories of hidden horrors circulate. But last month, something made me curious. I wanted to see it for myself. I've always been tech-savvy, so accessing the dark web was surprisingly easy. Forums, strange marketplaces, and bizarre websites flooded my screen, everything I expected from the rumors. But one night, I stumbled across something I couldn't ignore, a chat room called The Abyss. The description was vague, almost cryptic. Talk with those who truly see. Intrigued but unsure, I clicked the link and entered the chat. The interface was basic, just a black screen with a list of usernames and a single chat window in the center. Simple, eerie. The usernames stood out: Ebon Shade, Soul Seeker, Whispering Void. And before I could process them, messages began to flood the chat. Ebon Shade, welcome traveler. What do you seek? Soul Seeker, knowledge, power, or perhaps something darker? This is a place where truths are revealed, but be warned, not all truths are meant to be known. I hesitated, feeling a chill run through me. I typed back, trying to seem casual, just curious. What is this place? Would you like to see something truly enlightening? My heart skipped. I typed back before thinking, yes. A link appeared in the chat. Enter the abyss. Against my better judgment, I clicked it. The screen went black. For a moment, I thought my computer had crashed. But then it filled with a series of disturbing images: decaying buildings, people performing strange rituals, faces twisted in terror. It was like a nightmare unfolding in real time. I couldn't look away. When the images stopped, I was back in the chat room. But something was different. The usernames had changed. Now they read David, Claire, Michael. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop. My own webcam had turned on, showing my horrified face in the corner of the screen. I couldn't close the window. I couldn't turn off my computer. David, now you see? There's no turning back. Panic surged through me. I tried to rip my computer's power cord out, but the screen stayed on. It was like my computer had a mind of its own. The faces in the chat were cold, emotionless, watching me. We know where you are. My breath caught in my chest. I grabbed my phone to call for help, but it wouldn't turn on. I started to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. Then, just as I was about to lose it, my screen flickered. A new video feed appeared, my own apartment, but from an angle I didn't recognize. It was as if someone was inside, watching me. Michael, you invited us in. Now we are everywhere. In a frenzy, I bolted out the door, bursting into the hallway of my apartment building. The place was empty. I checked every room, every closet. No one was there. No one had followed me. But when I returned to my computer, the chat room was gone. The screen was just my desktop, as if nothing had happened. It was too quiet, too normal. Then my phone buzzed. I saw an email notification from an unknown sender. Subject: Welcome to the abyss. Body, we are always watching. I've never been the same since that night. I moved to a new city, changed my name, even found a new job. But the feeling that I'm always being watched never goes away. Sometimes I catch a shadow out of the corner of my eye or hear a whisper when I'm alone. A week after I moved, I woke up to a strange sound. My computer had turned itself on. I had left it off, but there it was, glowing in the darkness. The chat room was back. But this time the names were different. John, Emily, Sarah. People I had known. People who had passed away. John, why did you leave us? Emily, you can never escape. Sarah, we are part of you now. My hands shook as I tried to unplug the computer, but the screen stayed on, still showing their faces, twisted in agony and rage. I screamed, the sound raw and primal. In a panic, I grabbed the computer and threw it out of the window, watching it shatter on the pavement below. The screen went dark at last, but the terror didn't fade. It lingered. I thought replacing the computer would end the nightmare. But then the text started. From unknown numbers. Always the same message, we are watching. I don't know how much longer I can take this. They're everywhere now. In the reflections of windows, in the shadows of crowds, even in my dreams. I can't escape. If you ever find a chat room on the dark web called the Abyss, whatever you do, don't enter it. Some doors once opened can never be closed. One evening as I was walking home from work, the feeling hit me again. That horrible, suffocating sensation that someone was watching me. I turned around, heart pounding, but there was no one there. No one in sight. I quickened my pace, my breath shallow. My apartment was only a few blocks away. As soon as I stepped inside, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Text. We are here. The lights flickered, and a sudden chill filled the air. My breath came out in visible puffs. A coldness wrapped around me like fingers curling into my skin. My legs felt weak. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold it. I backed into the living room, my eyes darting around, searching for something, anything out of place. That's when I saw it. The shadows. They were moving. I thought I was imagining it at first, but they began to shift, to coalesce, forming shapes that almost looked human. Figures. Silent, dark, but unmistakably there. I don't know if it was a hallucination or something far worse, but then I heard their voices, soft at first, then growing louder, whispering my name. We're never leaving. A shiver ran through me, as if the air itself was alive. I could feel them, right there, in the room. We are part of you now. The words were inside my head, echoing with such force that I dropped the knife. I ran to my bedroom, heart racing, and locked the door behind me. But the whispers didn't stop. They only grew louder. Closer. Desperation took hold. I knew I had to warn someone, anyone. So I started typing this. But my fingers feel numb now. The words are slipping away. The whispers are too loud, too insistent. They're here, right now, in the room with me. If you find this post, if you're reading this, it's already too late for me. Don't search for the abyss. It will find you, and once it does, you can never escape. When my friend Alex first introduced me to the dark web, I had no idea what I was getting into. At first, it seemed like just a hidden corner of the internet, filled with shady forums and illegal goods. It was all new to me, but I figured, why not? I had used the deep web before to learn coding and dabble in small, harmless things. But after what I saw last night, I swear, I'll never go back again. I met Alex back in high school after my family moved to a new town. We didn't move voluntarily. My parents were terrified after a series of murders shook our old neighborhood. I thought it was a little extreme to pack up and leave the entire state because of it. But I didn't argue. The whole thing still didn't sit right with me, but I tried to adjust. Alex and I bonded quickly because we both shared a passion for the internet. While I was a gaming fanatic and a huge fan of Pokemon, Alex was a coding whiz. We spent hours together online, diving deep into tech and the web. Fast forward a couple of years, and Alex had found a new obsession. The dark web. He spent every waking moment exploring it, getting deeper and deeper into its twisted corners. I never thought much of it, but I should have known then that his curiosity would lead us both down a dangerous path. I'll never forget the morning when everything changed. I woke up to dozens of frantic text messages from Alex, something that was completely out of character for him. Alex wasn't the type to get emotional or overly excited. He wasn't even the type to send a single text unless it was absolutely necessary. The messages I received were urgent, with a sense of dread that I couldn't shake. "Dude, Jack, you need to come over now. This is important. Wake up, Jack. Something's happened." "Where are you?" I rushed over to Alex's house, trying to figure out what was going on. When I got there, I was greeted with a scene I'll never forget. 4 police cars and a swarm of news vans parked outside. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with confusion and fear. Alex's mom, tear-streaked and frantic, ushered me inside. "Mrs. Gonzalez, what's going on?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Alex is missing. He's gone," she sobbed, collapsing into my arms. My heart sank. Just hours ago I'd been texting him. How could he be gone? A thought hit me. What if his messages were trying to warn me? What if he knew something was coming? I walked into the kitchen and approached one of the detectives. "Is Alex going to be okay?" I asked, my voice shaky but hopeful. "Of course," the detective reassured me. "We're going to find him soon. Don't worry." But something about the way he said it felt wrong. I didn't trust him. Deep down, I felt a cold certainty that I might never see Alex again. I pulled out my phone and showed the detective the texts Alex had sent me that morning. "He texted me," I said, my voice quivering. "What if this has something to do with him disappearing?" The detective's face went pale as he read through the messages. Without saying much, he told me they needed to keep my phone for further investigation. "We'll give it back to you later," he promised, though his tone lacked any real conviction. The whole time I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. I decided to stay for a while, not just to comfort Alex's grieving parents, but also because I wanted answers. Alex's mom couldn't stop crying, and his dad just stared blankly into space. It hurt to see them like this. But as time went on, I started thinking about Alex. Where was he? What had he been doing? I went into Alex's room, hoping to find some kind of clue. His room was the same. Posters on the wall, clothes strewn about, and his computer sitting on the desk. The monitor was off, but the computer was still on. I hesitated for a moment, then pressed the power button. When the screen lit up, I felt an icy chill crawl up my spine. There were dozens of tabs open. At first, everything seemed normal. His usual websites, coding tutorials, forums. But then I noticed something strange. One of the tabs was an article about a brutal murder that had occurred years ago. The victim was a woman, found dead in her apartment. Her body had been mutilated, cut up, and doused in acid. I felt my stomach lurch as I scrolled through the article. The images from the crime scene were horrifying. Body parts scattered across the floor, blood everywhere. My head swirled, and for a moment I thought I might vomit. But I had to keep going. I felt like I was on the edge of something much bigger than I could understand. And that's when I saw it. Another tab. The page was titled Live Feed. I clicked it, not sure what I was expecting, but what I saw made my blood run cold. The feed was a live video of a man tied to a chair, struggling against his restraints. In the background, someone moved, their shadow flickering across the screen. It was then that I realized Alex had stumbled into something much darker than just a random corner of the dark web. He had found something that no one should ever see. Something that had pulled him in so deep there was no way out. And now, he was missing. I couldn't tear myself away from the screen. I was shaking uncontrollably, heart hammering in my chest. I couldn't believe what I had just seen. My parents, were murderers. The horrifying scene played out in my head, over and over again. My mother and father, cold and emotionless, dismembering our neighbor while she screamed in terror. My mind couldn't process it. How could they have kept this from me? How could I have lived in that house, slept under that roof, not knowing the truth? But there was more. I quickly clicked through the other videos on the page, trying to make sense of the nightmare that was unfolding before me. Each video showed the same scene, the same room, the same chair, and each time the victims, mostly women, were tortured, mutilated, and left to die in the same gruesome manner. But then something caught my eye. In the corner of one of the videos I saw something I hadn't noticed before. A shadow, a figure, moving in the background. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The figure wasn't just a random blur or distortion. It was clearly a person. I clicked on the video to enlarge it, heart racing. As the figure came into view, my blood turned to ice. It was me. The figure was me. I could barely make out my face, but I recognized the shape of my body, the way I was standing in the corner of the room, barely visible in the background. My stomach churned. How had I not noticed this before? Was this video taken after we moved? After everything went down? Was I somehow involved in all of this? Was I the next victim? The video ended, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My mind was spinning. I closed my eyes for a moment, hoping it was all a bad dream, hoping I'd wake up. But when I opened them again, the screen was still there, the chilling truth staring me in the face. I scrolled down, the dread growing with every video I clicked on. But then I saw it. The last video on the page was different. The room was darker, more sinister, and the victim wasn't someone I recognized. But when I looked closer at the figure sitting in the chair, my blood ran cold. It was someone I knew, someone I had seen just a few days ago. It was Alex. Suddenly, it all clicked. Alex hadn't just gone missing. He had uncovered the truth. He had been trying to warn me, to stop me from following him down this dark path. And now, he was gone, just like the others. I slammed my laptop shut, trembling uncontrollably. My hands were clammy, and my heart was pounding so hard in my chest I thought I might pass out. This couldn't be happening, but it was. It was all real. My parents, the murders, Alex's disappearance, they were all connected. And now I was stuck in the middle of it. I stood there, frozen, unsure of what to do next. My mind raced. Should I go to the police? Should I confront my parents? Or should I run? But I knew that no matter where I went, I was never going to escape the truth. I wanted to scream, to cry, but nothing came out. My world had shattered into a million pieces, and there was no way to put it back together. I had uncovered something that I should have never seen. I had walked too far into the abyss, and now I was trapped. The worst part? I couldn't escape the feeling that they were watching me. I was never alone, and soon, I feared I would be just another face on one of those videos. There was a new video uploaded today on the site. My hands were trembling as I clicked on it, desperate to understand what was happening, what I had stumbled into. The video loaded slowly, the screen flickering before revealing a grim scene. A man was strapped to the same old chair, his body rigid, his arms restrained. He wore a burlap sack over his head, concealing his identity. I couldn't make out any features, but the tension in the air was thick. The camera angle shifted, and once again I saw my parents step into frame. My heart sank. My father, cold and motionless as ever, moved toward the man, his presence ominous. Without saying a word, he ripped the sack from the man's head. At first, I didn't recognize him. The face beneath the sack was pale, distorted from fear and the harsh lighting of the room. But as I focused, something in my stomach dropped. Horrified recognition crept in. It was Alex. I couldn't breathe. My mind went blank. Alex, my best friend, the one who had tried to warn me, the one who had gone missing. He was there, in that chair. His eyes were wide with terror, his mouth open in a silent scream. He was struggling against his restraints, but there was no escape. I watched in frozen horror as my parents stood over him, my father holding a knife, my mother holding the same scalpel she had used in the earlier videos. They didn't hesitate. They moved with practiced precision, as if this was nothing new. The camera captured everything, the terror in Alex's eyes, the way his body jerked in the chair as they cut into him, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't look away. I was paralyzed, horrified, knowing deep down that this was my fault. Alex had tried to warn me, he had tried to stop me, and now he was gone. I stared at the email, reading and rereading it 10 times. It seemed like some sort of prank or joke, but the rules were so specific, so detailed, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was real. I thought maybe I had too much to drink the night before, or that my mind was just playing tricks on me. But as much as I wanted to ignore it, I couldn't help but feel intrigued. I couldn't believe it, but I found myself standing in front of the address the next night, 15 minutes before midnight, with an old iPod in my pocket. The house was old but still livable. It had a dusty charm to it, but the kitchen and living room were spotless. I made my way upstairs, my heart pounding in my chest. At the end of a long hallway, I found the camera room. It was small and empty, except for a chair, a camera monitor, and a few windows. I sat down in the chair, glancing nervously at the clock. It was 12:03 a.m. I had 1 hour to look around the house. The clock ticked on, and I began my tasks, locking doors, turning off lights, and closing blinds. At 12:56 a.m., I was back in the camera room. The rules said I had to be there by 1 a.m. I switched on the monitors and checked every camera feed. Nothing unusual so far, but that gnawing feeling of dread was growing. I felt it like a cold weight in my chest. The clock struck 1 a.m., and that's when everything changed. A chill ran down my spine as I felt the air shift. I couldn't explain it, but I knew something was wrong. My neck prickled as if someone was standing right behind me. My heart raced. I glanced at the cameras, and that's when I saw it. A figure, dark and indistinct, appeared in the living room, sitting on the couch, staring at the TV. I froze. The rules flooded back into my mind. If you see a man in the living room, turn the camera off. But I didn't move. I couldn't. Something felt off about this, like the figure wasn't just a man, like it was something else entirely. The sense of unease that washed over me made it impossible to follow the rules. Don't move, don't look at it. I kept my eyes glued to the monitor, trying to fight the urge to look around the room. I felt the presence behind me. The rules said I had to stay calm, but as I felt the sensation of something brushing against my neck, I panicked. I closed my eyes like the rules instructed and waited. The cold sensation against my neck grew stronger. The voice in my head whispered, "Don't move." I opened my eyes, relieved to find that the eerie sensation had finally passed, but the sense of unease didn't leave. I heard slow, deliberate footsteps behind me. I whipped around in an instant, but the moment I did, the footsteps abruptly stopped. Then, from the camera speaker, I heard a low, slow chuckle. It was the man from the living room. He was still watching TV.
The screen was now lit up with some cooking show, the bright, garish colors of it almost sickening in their contrast to the darkness of the room. The man chuckled along with the show, his laughter thick and slow, as if savoring every moment. I quickly turned off the camera, praying I had done it quickly enough to avoid whatever was coming next. But the sound from the TV echoed up the stairs, chilling me to the bone. What the hell is this place? I thought to myself, feeling nauseous. How is it only 1:20 a.m.? The next 20 minutes felt like an eternity. The man's laughter continued, muffled through the camera's speaker, as I nervously cycled through the other cameras. I could hear the faint creaks of the old house, the house groaning in the silence between the sounds. The laughter continued, and I couldn't help but feel the oppressive weight of it pressing down on me. But then it stopped. The TV went silent. I froze. The silence was so deafening, it seemed to fill the entire house, the absence of the noise more threatening than anything. The constant hum of the television, that steady background noise, had been my only anchor, and now it was gone. I quickly turned the camera back on, my heart hammering in my chest. The living room was empty. I let out a quiet breath of relief, but the tight feeling in my stomach remained. I didn't let myself relax. I couldn't. For what felt like hours, I kept my eyes glued to the cameras, waiting for something, anything to happen. But nothing did. The house was still, except for the quiet ticking of the clock. Finally, the clock beeped quietly, and the time turned to 2 a.m. I stood up, my legs shaky beneath me, and walked to the blinds. The room outside was pitch black, the lawn barely visible under the dim moonlight. I sat back down and glanced at the blue button beside the monitor. The woman in the kitchen? The clattering of pots and pans rang through the house, and I could see her, now cooking something in the kitchen. Her movements were quick, frantic almost, as if she were trying to get the meal done as fast as possible. But what she was cooking didn't make sense. The eggs were black. They looked burnt, but not in the usual way. They were burnt to the point of being charred beyond recognition. My hand hovered over the blue button. I should press it. I had to. But then I heard something that made my blood run cold. A voice, soft but clear, came from the window. "Hi, Chris." I froze, my body locked in place. The voice was calm, too calm, like someone who knew exactly what they were doing. It was a woman's voice. Forcing myself to look away from the monitor, I slowly turned my head toward the window. I couldn't look. I knew what I had to do. "Hi, how was your day?" My voice shook, but I couldn't help it. I was terrified. "I was just strolling around the neighborhood," the voice continued. "Saw you were here, and I just wanted to say hi." I glanced at the window. It was too high off the ground to reach without a ladder.
How could she be standing there? How could she have even seen me? My heart pounded in my chest. "How was your day?" she asked, as though she were chatting casually with a neighbor. "It was fine. Thanks," I stammered, my throat dry. The woman in the kitchen had gotten louder. The pots and pans clanged together, a loud, unnerving rhythm. It was as if she was trying to drown out the conversation. "Okay, well, I have to go. It was nice to meet you." The words hit me like a slap. It felt like she was mocking me, and I couldn't move. "It was nice to meet you too," I managed to say, forcing the words out. "Bye." I wanted to jump up, slam the blinds shut, and pretend like I never heard her voice. But something inside me told me that I couldn't. I stayed frozen in place, watching the window out of the corner of my eye. "Wow, you're a smart one," she said, her voice laced with something darker now. "I thought that would get you. Maybe next time." The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to see her face. "Goodbye," she said again, her voice suddenly sweet. I waited, my breath caught in my throat. Seconds felt like minutes as I waited for her to leave. When I was sure she was gone, I finally let out the breath I was holding and quickly closed the blinds. I sat back down, my heart still racing, trying to ignore the shaking in my hands. The woman's voice still echoed in my mind. Maybe next time. I had no idea what that meant, but I knew one thing for sure. I had to finish this shift, and I had no idea what was waiting for me after that. It was only 2:30 a.m. There was still so much time left. Once that ordeal was over, I realized the lady from the kitchen was gone, even though I never pressed the button. My mind went into overdrive. Oh no. Oh no no no, I thought, panic flooding my chest. I had broken one of the rules, and it was only 2:30 a.m. Now, sitting under the desk, typing this out on my iPod, there's a lady with a ragged apron walking in circles around the room. I'm too scared to make any noise, too terrified to move. So please, if you ever see an ad for dark web jobs, don't click it. It's 4:30 now. I made it out of the house and I'm safe, but my left leg hurts a little. Let me start from the beginning. The lady from the kitchen kept walking around the room. She was groaning softly, drooling everywhere, and every time she turned in my direction, I froze, not daring to move a muscle. A small beep came from the desk, signaling that it was 3 a.m. At that moment, the lady in my room melted into the floorboards. She screamed, an agonizing, bone-chilling scream, one that sounded like it came from the very depths of hell. The scream was so intense, so filled with agony, I thought I might die from the sheer terror of it. What I was supposed to do at this point was turn on the music on my iPod, close my eyes and cover my ears. But I was hiding under the desk, and I didn't know if I still had to follow the rules. I didn't want to risk it. I waited in the silence, my mind racing, but the terror didn't stop. The house itself seemed to start changing, shifting. The walls and floors contorted, faces began to emerge from the surfaces, grotesque and twisted. The sound that followed was like the collective scream of every tortured soul in the universe. I couldn't take it anymore. My mind screamed at me to run, to escape this nightmare. But I knew I couldn't. I remembered the rules. I closed my eyes, shoved my iPod in my ears, and turned the volume all the way up. The music blared, and for a few moments the screams were drowned out. It almost felt calming. But in the back of my mind, I could still feel the horror lurking around me. The music stopped abruptly. I opened my eyes. The house was normal again. The walls were solid, the faces gone. My legs felt like jelly, but I stood up shakily, glancing at the clock. 3:34 a.m. I quickly dove back under the desk and lay there, too terrified to move, too scared to even breathe. The minutes crawled by, stretching out into what felt like hours. But nothing happened. I stayed there for 35 minutes, too afraid to make a sound, until I finally heard the clock's final beep. I could leave. I stood up and walked down the hallway, down the stairs, and toward the front door. I opened it, and the cool night air hit my face like a wave of relief. For the first time that night, I could breathe. I walked home in a daze, numb to everything around me. When I got back, I grabbed my phone. I was going to email Mr. Salazar, tell him I was done, but when I opened my email, there was nothing. No trace of him, no trace of the website. It was all gone, like it never existed. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. The faces, the screams, the things I saw, they were all still fresh in my mind. I didn't care about the money anymore. I just wanted to forget that house. I wanted to forget everything that happened. It's 6 a.m. now. A package appeared at my door. Inside was $80 and a letter. The letter read as follows: "You can't escape. Hello again, Chris. I see you showed up for your shift this morning. I appreciate that. However, during your shift, you broke one of the rules. I've taken $20 off your pay for that. I'm sure you already know, but I can tell you don't want to go back. Most people don't. And I'm here to tell you, you can't escape. By entering that house, you pretty much signed your soul away. No matter what you do, you'll always find yourself back there by midnight. That is all. Sincerely, Mr. Salazar." My sleep last night was horrible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the faces again. I couldn't stop thinking about what happened on my first shift. The whole day I stayed in bed, too terrified to leave, too scared for midnight to come. But it had to come eventually. It was 11:57 p.m. when I started to feel the fear creeping in again. I begged, prayed, anything to stop this madness, to make it go away. 11:58, my hands were trembling. I grabbed my iPod and shoved it into the trash, trying to rid myself of any reminder of that hellish place. 11:59, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, closing my eyes, hoping against hope that nothing would happen. I feel pressure on my feet, and the softness of my bed disappears. Panic fills me as I open my eyes to find myself back in that cursed house, iPod in hand, along with a printed sheet of the rules from my previous shift. What the hell? How is this even possible? I think, my heart racing in my chest. The walls are familiar, cold, and unsettling. I'm trapped again. I run to the door, slamming my fists against it in desperation, but it's no use. I can't leave. I feel a sense of defeat wash over me. I'm stuck. I can't get out. I slowly walk up the stairs, feeling every step heavy with dread. I make my way to the camera room and collapse into the chair. Tears fall down my face. For an hour, I sit there, lost in hopelessness, not knowing what else to do. Then the clock strikes 1 a.m., and with it, the all-too-familiar sound of a man laughing at the TV. The laugh. The show. The sickening, constant noise. I don't even bother looking at the cameras this time. I just turn it off and let myself sob, drowning in the sound of my own sorrow. Why does this keep happening? But then I feel it. A cold hand slowly wrap around my neck. My body freezes. I close my eyes, desperate to remember the rules. The grip tightens, squeezing the breath from my lungs. It's getting harder to breathe, harder to think. I can't move. I can't. Then, as suddenly as it came, the grip loosens. I gasp, sucking in air, my heart hammering in my chest. I clutch the printed sheet of rules, shaking, staring at it through blurry eyes. The rules that I had to follow, the rules that had led me here. At the bottom of the paper, there's a handwritten message from Mr. Ray Salazar. Good luck. I stare at the message, feeling the weight of the words settle in. Good luck. I swallow hard, trying to steady my breath, my hands still shaking. I look up at the cameras, taking a deep breath. You can do this, Chris. You've already been through this. You can survive. Just follow the damn rules. I listen carefully. No more laughter. The man is gone. The clock lets out a small beep, signaling that it's 2 a.m. I stand up, my legs weak beneath me, and I approach the blinds. Do I really want to do this again? The question gnaws at me. I hesitate. The thought of that woman, her skeletal face, her twisted smile, makes my stomach turn. But I can't back out now. I push the thought aside and open the blinds. The sight that greets me is something that will never leave my mind. A woman stands outside, but she's not a woman. Her skin clings to her bones as if it had been vacuum sealed. There's no meat left on her body. Her smile, it stretches impossibly wide, ear to ear, and her skin sags down like melted wax, hanging at least 2 feet below her chin. Her eyes are hollow, blackened, bloodshot, with tiny yellow pupils staring right through me. Hello again, Chris. The words crawl through my skin like 1,000 ants. I slam the blinds shut, my heart racing, my body trembling. I stumble backwards, desperate to hide, but there's nowhere to go. The desk, it's just a block. There's no space under it. What now? Then I hear them. The slow, deliberate footsteps. She's coming up the stairs. Oh God. The doorknob rattles. My breath catches in my throat. It's locked. Thank God. Thank God I remembered to lock the door. I scramble to the side, watching the knob twist, then jiggle. The door rattles again, and then I hear her. She's screeching, slamming her hands against the door, The sound of her nails dragging across the wood makes my skin crawl. I press myself against the corner of the room, trembling, praying the door will hold. But I know it's only a matter of time until she breaks through. What do I do? What do I do? I can't stay here. I can't face her again. But there's no escape. The deep web is often described as a place of limitless freedom, a world where you can speak your mind, buy whatever you want, and do almost anything, all with total anonymity. It's not a place for joy or lightheartedness, but for unfiltered, uncensored expression. For those looking for an escape from the restrictions of the surface web, it's a tempting proposition. As a college student, I was no stranger to the deep web. I had heard all the stories, the hacking, the disturbing websites, and the dangers of having your personal information exposed. These stories had always kept me away, but when I saw more and more of my classmates diving in, it seemed like it might be perfectly safe. It was becoming a trend, and I didn't want to miss out. I finally decided to give it a try. I asked a friend to help me set things up on my laptop. He introduced me to Tor, the browser that lets you access the deep web, and reassured me that I wouldn't need any extra security unless I planned on doing something illegal. Since I had no intention of breaking the law, we skipped installing Tails, the security software designed for those engaging in illicit activities. Once everything was up and running, I was ready to go. My new IP address was in place, and my friend gave me a rundown of the do's and don'ts. He made it clear that while browsing the hidden wiki, I should keep the censored mode on to avoid stumbling upon disturbing content. For the next 2 weeks, I stuck to the basics. I visited various sites, chatted with people, and even bought some weed online. I felt comfortable, even cocky. I was becoming more familiar with the dark corners of the deep web, and I felt ready to go deeper. One night, I decided to turn off the censored mode on the hidden wiki and explore the unfiltered content. It took a while. Tor is slow, and many links led to dead ends. But eventually, I stumbled across a site called All the Gore. It looked like just another chat room, but as I started scrolling through the threads, I realized this was unlike anything I'd ever encountered. The people in these chat rooms weren't just sharing dark humor or fictional stories. They were discussing real violence, murderers, torturers, and psychopaths bragging about their crimes. In one of the chat rooms, a user named Culture045 stood out. He began detailing the horrifying story of how he broke into a house, kidnapped a little girl, and murdered her parents by slitting their throats while hiding under their bed. But the real horror came when he described what he did to the girl afterward. At first, I thought he was just trying to shock people. But then he posted pictures. The images were so graphic I couldn't look away. Even though every part of me screamed to close the page, close-ups of a young girl, probably no older than 8 or 10, being raped, beaten, and mutilated. Culture posted more pictures, showing her tied to a chair, bloodied, vomiting, and in tears. Then came the most grotesque image. Him holding a power drill, pressing it into her skull while staring directly into the camera with a sadistic grin on his face. I was horrified, my stomach turning. I couldn't take it anymore. I typed into the chat, "You people are sick. How can you sleep at night?" Instantly, the chat room exploded with insults. They mocked me for being helpless and ignorant, calling me a pussy and a little empath. The more they taunted me, the more I felt the weight of my decision to even be on this site. But what happened next was the worst part. Culture45 typed, "Really? Where do you live, buddy? I'm sure everyone would love to see you on this site." I panicked. I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. I quickly typed, "I'm calling the police, I'm shutting this site down." The moment I pressed send, everything on the screen went black. A new chat window popped up, glowing green. A message appeared from someone named Admin1. It read, "Call the cops and you will regret it." My heart raced. I froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. I reached for my phone to call the police, but when I tried to turn it on, it was dead. Completely unresponsive. I tried again. Nothing. Panic crept up my spine. I looked around my room, the silence now deafening. I knew I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The deep web wasn't just a place to browse. It was a place that could reach into your life, into your very being. I sat there, staring at the dark screen, a sinking feeling in my stomach. knowing I had just signed myself up for something far darker than I could ever have imagined. I froze as my phone buzzed. I opened the message. It read, "Call the police and you're dead." There was no number, not even an unknown caller. The message just came from nowhere. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. I glanced back at my laptop and saw the light from my webcam flicker on. I quickly covered it, but it was too late. On my screen was a photo of me, looking down at my phone in a state of shock. I froze. A new message appeared in the chat. "Put the phone down right now and uncover your webcam." I hesitated, then slowly placed my phone down, but I kept the webcam covered. Another message popped up. "Okay then, be like that." Then, my full name, age, and home address appeared in the chat box. The message read, "It would be a shame if you and your college buddies went missing, wouldn't it?" Panic surged through me. I did as they said. I uncovered my webcam. "Good choice," the message read. "Now, follow the instructions carefully and make it impossible for you to reach this site again." I followed every instruction. Each step felt like I was giving away pieces of myself. The fear was suffocating, but there was no choice. Once it was done, a text appeared. "Now don't ever try and come back." Again, no number. I still called the police using my friend's phone, but they couldn't track the site. They told me there was no way to recover my history, and because I had stumbled upon it randomly, there was no lead to follow. They advised me to change all of my information and to move to a safer place. I moved in with my friend, David. David was different from most people I knew. He was responsible, dedicated to school, and stayed away from the deep web entirely. I told him about what had happened, and he agreed to let me stay with him. But even after all the precautions I'd taken, I still felt trapped. One night, while we were both studying late, my phone buzzed again. The message came from a blank number. It simply said, "Check your computer." I felt the blood drain from my face. When I opened my laptop, I saw that I had no control over the mouse. It moved on its own, like someone was remotely guiding it. I tried every keyboard command I knew, but nothing worked. Then my phone buzzed again. "Look out your window." I was sitting by a window. I looked outside, unsure if the message meant the window I was near or another. My breath caught in my throat as I saw a man standing in the parking lot, leaning against a white van, holding a phone. When our eyes met, he nodded. My phone buzzed once more. Type in and hold down Shift-Alt F5 to activate the software. I immediately called David into my room. He was just as nervous as I was. We both stared at the man outside, who now stood completely still, watching us. David called the police, telling them they needed to hurry. I hesitated. I didn't want to activate the software. The more I thought about it, the more certain I became that it was malware or spyware that would destroy my laptop. Then another text came. "I am coming in if you don't do it right now." I wasn't about to let someone control my computer, but I also couldn't risk angering whoever was watching us. David grabbed a baseball bat, just in case the man tried to break in. 5 minutes passed. Then we heard the doorknob turn. The door was locked, but the banging came harder, more violent. Then we heard a scratching sound, like nails dragging down the wood. The noise lasted for several more minutes before footsteps faded down the hall. I received another text, "We will be back." That message sent a chill through me. The police arrived soon after. They told me to take a look at the door. When I stepped outside my room, I saw it. My name scratched deeply into the door. They began an investigation, and a tech officer came in to check my laptop. After running scans, he said it had been compromised. The core files were corrupted. He suggested I wipe the computer entirely and check my phone. Like before, they couldn't track the source of the messages. The police reassured me they'd keep patrols nearby, just in case. The next day, I came home exhausted from school. David was still out, so I collapsed onto the bed, hoping for some rest. As soon as my eyes began to close, I heard a faint rattling sound from the closet. I paused, waiting. Nothing. I sighed in relief and lay back down. Then the closet door swung open. My heart stopped. A man wearing a mask stepped out. He moved toward me with an unnerving calmness. I bolted for the door, slamming it behind me. I ran into the parking lot, jumped in my car, and sped off, not daring to look back. By the time the police arrived, the man was gone. The apartment was untouched. Nothing stolen. There was no sign of forced entry. but the terror I felt was palpable. The officers began monitoring the building closely, setting up a perimeter to catch whoever had been tormenting me. Back at the apartment, I sat down at my laptop. My wallpaper had changed. It was no longer the trees that had been there before. Now, it was a horrifying image of the same masked man from my closet, digging a knife into a baby's eye in a small cabin. I felt bile rise in my throat as I realized what was happening. The programs on my laptop had been wiped clean, but in the center of the screen, a familiar piece of malware had been reinstalled. I clicked on it. The program filled the screen, locking me out of everything else. What appeared to be a live stream opened. It showed a boy, around 13 or 14, sitting at his desk, looking at his computer. I froze. What the hell is going on? I stared at the screen in horror as I realized the live stream wasn't just a random video. It was live. And it was happening right now. I was watching through the boy's webcam. He had no idea. In the corner of the screen, a chat box popped up. The first message made my stomach drop. "Welcome to our live stream. We are glad everyone could be here. Thank you, John, for being here as well." I froze. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. John. That was my name. I tried to look away, but I couldn't tear my eyes from the screen. The camera was focused on a young boy, maybe 13 or 14, sitting at his desk. Then I saw something moving in the background. The closet door slowly creaked open. A man stepped out holding a toolbox. He placed it down quietly and took out some duct tape. My blood ran cold as he approached the boy from behind. The man pressed the tape over the boy's mouth. The child struggled, trying to scream, but it was muffled. The boy's eyes went wide with terror. I could hear the faint noises. The man was quiet, but not quiet enough to hide the fear in the boy's movements. Then came the worst sound I had ever heard. The man took a screwdriver and drove it into the boy's chest. The child let out a horrified wheezing noise as blood poured from the wound. I wanted to look away, to turn off my screen, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed by the nightmare unfolding in front of me.
Tears streamed down the boy's face as the man twisted the screwdriver deeper into his flesh. He pulled it out, but then took a hammer and smashed it down onto the boy's hands. With each strike, the boy's hands became a mangled mess of blood and bone. I tried everything to exit out of the stream. I hit every key, frantically clicked the mouse, but nothing worked. The chat was full of people cheering the man on, calling for more. Requests were pouring in. Do more to him. Finish him. The horror was feeding off itself, spiraling further into madness. Then, the man took an electric saw from the toolbox. He pressed it against the boy's face and powered it on. The boy screamed, a shrill, agonizing sound as the saw dug into his eye. Blood splattered across the camera lens, and I could hear the boy's cries, muffled by the tape. I couldn't breathe. I was shaking uncontrollably, my chest tight with panic. But the worst was yet to come. The man used the screwdriver to gouge out the boy's eyes, and then, in one brutal motion, slit his throat. The boy's body crumpled to the floor in a bloody heap. I couldn't handle it anymore. I vomited onto the floor, my body convulsing with disgust and terror. But when I glanced back at the screen, my heart sank further. In the chat box, people were typing comments like, "Fap, fap, fap! That was beautiful, thanks for the show." And then I saw it. "Thanks for watching, John." It was from Culture045, the same name I had seen in the chat before. The program closed itself out, leaving me staring at the same sickening wallpaper. The masked man, the electric saw, the child's lifeless body. My hands were sweating, my heart pounding in my chest. I could barely catch my breath. Throughout the entire ordeal, I hadn't noticed my phone buzzing non-stop. When I finally checked it, I was horrified. The messages were hateful, cruel, venomous. From my friends. From my family. They were furious. My mother's text read, "You sent that sick, disturbing live stream to everyone. I can't believe who you are. The police have been called." My stomach twisted in knots. They had somehow framed me. Those monsters had sent that horrific live stream to everyone I knew, making it look like it came from me. My life, in just a matter of minutes, had been destroyed. When the police arrived, I explained everything. They quickly clarified to my friends and family that I had nothing to do with it, but the damage had already been done. They knew what had happened, but my reputation was shattered. The police intensified their search. A month later, 4 men were arrested. Culture045 was one of them. along with admin 1 and 2 accomplices. The site was shut down. I got a new laptop and phone and thought I could finally move on.
I wish I could say that I was free of the terror. I wish I could say it was over. But the truth is, it's not. The police were able to track down the men responsible. But what about all the others? The ones who watched the live stream for their own pleasure? What about the thousands of people who are just like Culture 045? The scariest part? They're still out there. And they're still watching. They always will be. The deep web is not a place you should venture into casually. You've probably heard about it. Stories of people buying illicit goods, looking for illegal content, or just exploring out of curiosity. But I'm not here to talk about those. I want to talk about something far more unsettling. The part of the internet that's darker, stranger, and almost unexplainable. The part that's beyond the reach of most people. The kind of place you're not supposed to see. There was this infographic that circulated some time ago, the 8 levels of the internet. You've probably seen it, or at least heard of it. It's an interesting read, but frankly, it's nonsense. Polymeric Fauci-Goal derivation and Primark system sound like something out of a sci-fi novel, and quantum mechanics isn't involved here. No, this is far more primal. It's not easy to find either. I won't tell you how to get there because frankly, even if I did, you wouldn't make it. It's not about skill or intelligence, but about dedication. I spent months chasing this. Long hours peeling back layers of firewalls, cracking encryptions, solving bizarre philosophical puzzles, and following secretive links. I didn't have much of a life outside of this obsession. I had been warned. People told me I wouldn't like what I found, that it would be beyond my understanding. I didn't listen. Now I'm passing that warning to you. Do not seek this place out. It doesn't have a proper name, at least not one I've ever seen. But there are rumors. Some say it's a secret Illuminati chat room. Others claim it's a virtual prison for a rogue AI. In reality, it's something much worse. After a long, exhausting journey of clicking through obscure links and navigating cryptic questions, I arrived at a blank page with one line of text. Quid quaeris, Latin for what do you seek? I froze. I didn't expect this, though I don't know what I did expect. I didn't know what to answer. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I just wanted to see where this path would lead. So I typed in some generic responses. The truth, enlightenment, the usual philosophical buzzwords. Nothing happened. I tried more answers, more specific, more cryptic. Still nothing. Frustrated, I decided to try something different. I typed what also seeks me. To my shock, the page went blank. Completely blank. I waited, not sure what to expect. After a few minutes, I was redirected to something new. It wasn't a website, not really. More like a list. A long series of links displayed against a brownish-yellow background. But these weren't normal links. They were strings of characters, symbols, and letters I didn't recognize, almost like a language from another world. I clicked the first link. It took me to a live feed. Paris catacombs. I watched for a few moments, but it was uneventful. I moved on to the next one. This time the video was shaky, and the scene was dark. I could make out men in tactical gear. They were in a house, sweeping each room, clearing them one by one. Then they kicked open a door, and what they found wasn't human. A creature. Tall, humanoid, with scaly skin. It was gnawing on a dismembered arm. They opened fire, but it escaped out the window. The video stopped right there. I sat frozen in shock. The footage looked too real to be a hoax or unreleased film. What the hell was I watching? I couldn't look away. The next links got stranger and more disturbing. One led to a report on the Paragon Project, detailing human experimentation aimed at creating superhuman strength. It seemed official, but who could know for sure? I came across documents on space-time anomalies, apparent glitches in reality, and photos that seemed to show glimpses of alternate dimensions. One document described a nuclear weapon 720,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Another talked about the true nature of the Holy Grail. There were files on lost assassinations, mysterious disappearances, and even recovered logs from skinwalker hunting expeditions. But the most disturbing was a transcript of 9/11 calls from a town in Texas that disappeared without a trace in 1977. Then there was the section titled simply, The Dyatlov Pass Incident. I was familiar with it, of course, But this document wasn't like the others. It didn't explain the deaths as some freak accident or an unexplained natural event. According to these files, they didn't die because of snow. Something far worse was at play. I had barely begun to digest everything when the next link loaded. This one wasn't a document, it was a video. I was staring at the face of a man, middle-aged, with a pale complexion, eyes sunken and hollow. Behind him was a room I couldn't quite make out. It looked like a basement or an old storage facility, but there was something off about it. The man began to speak, but it wasn't in any language I recognized. It was almost musical, a chant or incantation, something far older than anything I had ever heard. I was about to stop the video, my unease growing, but something stopped me. It was like a pull, a sense that I needed to keep watching. And I did. What happened next was like nothing I could describe. A series of cryptic symbols flashed on the screen, images of strange, mythical creatures, bizarre landscapes, and people whose faces seemed to blur and shift. It felt like I was looking into something that I wasn't supposed to see. Then the feed went black. But the words that appeared on the screen, those stayed with me. You shouldn't have come here. I spent hours deep in the labyrinth of links, each page more disturbing and cryptic than the last. It felt like I was delving into something I wasn't supposed to see, like the deepest corners of the human mind laid bare. One link led me to an old trailer for a silent film from 1910. The film was supposedly cursed. Those who watched it had been driven to gouge out their own eyes. It was said to have nearly derailed the entire film industry at the time. Another link was a live stream of a hooded man sitting before a camera, his head bowed. After a long silence, he slowly lifted his face, revealing that he had no mouth. Then, a deep, guttural voice broke through the speakers. Hello. Somehow, I knew the sound came from him. I quickly closed the stream. I didn't want to stick around to see what else might happen. I continued clicking, each link pulling me further into a rabbit hole of unspeakable content. Step-by-step guides on performing grisly rituals, like cutting off your own limbs and attaching the severed parts of a corpse, lurked alongside instructions for conducting strange religious rites in the Siberian wilderness. There was also a bizarre video titled The Futility of the Living. I didn't dare watch it. But the worst realization came when I understood something terrifying. Even the most powerful governments couldn't control this. As I scrolled down the endless list of links, I realized there was no end. No matter how far I went, there was always more. And that was when the dread really set in. Eventually, I think I reached a breaking point and passed out on the floor. When I came to, it was the dead of night, and my computer screen was showing looped helicopter footage of a massive crab-like creature tearing apart an isolated coastal island. I clicked it off, but just sat there, unable to process what I'd seen. My mind screamed at me to destroy the computer, to burn everything, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. As I stared at the screen in disbelief, I noticed something I hadn't before. In the bottom left corner was a small message in Latin, "Are you satisfied?" Below it were two options, yes and no. I knew what the right answer was. Of course, I wasn't satisfied, I was horrified. The things I'd witnessed had scarred me. But for some reason, I clicked no. The page refreshed instantly. The familiar setup remained, but now there were only 4 links. These weren't random characters or gibberish. They were incomprehensible symbols that looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. Not from this world. Not even close. I clicked the first one. It only took about 20 seconds before I slammed my computer shut. I can't even begin to describe what I saw. It wasn't graphic. It wasn't disturbing in the way you might expect from horror films. It just didn't make sense. I can't explain it. My mind couldn't even process the images. There were things moving, but they didn't move like anything on Earth. There were colors I'd never seen, shapes I couldn't comprehend. It felt like my mind was being stretched too thin, like the boundaries of my understanding were being shattered. We live in 3 dimensions, forward, backward, left, right. But these things, they existed in a way that didn't fit within our laws of reality. I couldn't keep watching. I shouldn't have even seen it. But something inside me wanted to know, to push further, and I regret it every single day. That's when I left my room. I needed to get out of the house, to breathe, to clear my head. I considered going for a walk, maybe even running a marathon just to distract myself for a few hours. I grabbed my jacket, but before I could leave, there was a knock at the door. I froze. I wasn't going to open it. I didn't know who it was, but I wasn't about to let anyone in. But the knocks kept coming, slow and deliberate, until I heard a voice from the other side. "Open up. We know what you did, but we're not here to hurt you. We just want to talk." I stood still, unsure what to do. A few more knocks, then the voice spoke again. "We just want to talk." I don't know why, but I opened the door. Standing there were two tall men in suits, smiling politely at me. They asked if they could come inside. I couldn't figure out how they found me. I thought for sure I was off the grid, untraceable. But they were standing there, in my house, like they'd always known I'd be here. I didn't question them. We sat on the couch, and one of them asked, "What were you looking for?" I hesitated before responding, "I don't know, but I'm not going back." The man smiled again. It felt like he was pleased with my answer, like that's exactly what he wanted to hear. The other man spoke up, his tone suddenly more aggressive. "Who do you work for?" I shook my head, confused. "I don't work for anyone. I didn't know what I was getting into. I wasn't looking for anything." They stared at me for a long time without saying anything. Finally, the first man spoke again. "We're not worried about you telling anyone. Doubt anyone would believe you." Another smile. He then said, "We just want to know what your priorities are." It was a strange question, and I didn't know how to respond. But I didn't argue. I just sat there, waiting. Then the second man leaned forward, his voice softer now. "Just do us a favor, and we'll leave." I raised my eyebrows. "What?" "Give us the device you used to access the site." I didn't ask questions. I didn't even hesitate. I ran upstairs, grabbed my laptop, and tossed it to them. They both smirked at me before heading for the door. But just as they were about to leave, the first man turned back. His smile had faded. "I don't think you need to be told, but don't try this again, and don't show anyone else how to get there. We'll know." I didn't ask who they were. To this day, I don't want to know. It's been a week since they left. I haven't been on the internet much. I've tried to forget about everything, to move on, but the nightmares keep coming. I'm seeing a therapist for them, but honestly, I don't think it's helping. I keep telling myself that it's over, that it's behind me now. But every time I close my eyes, I see his face, the man with no mouth. And I wonder if it ever really ends. Maybe I'm not supposed to know these things. Maybe it's better if I don't. But I can't escape the feeling that it's already too late. Wednesday. It's been 3 days since I returned to work, and something feels off. I'm certain I'm being followed. It started subtly. The first time I didn't notice. But now, every time I leave work, there's a vehicle behind me. It's the same one each time. I don't know who they are or what they want, but it's clear they're following me. At first, I thought it might be a coincidence, but after 3 days, I'm not so sure. I don't know what they're after. Maybe they just want to monitor me. But I'm not sure how long I can keep this up. All I know is something's not right. Thursday, I tried something new today. Watching for them in my rearview mirror. No luck. The windows were tinted too dark. Of course. Same as always, I pulled into my driveway, and they just drove right past me. I've told myself 100 times I'm just gonna ride this out, but damn, this is starting to eat at me. Every day they get closer. I can't keep pretending this isn't wearing me down. Friday, I decided to change things up. Took public transit instead of driving, mostly as an experiment. See if they'd still be tailing me. After work, I went to a bar to drown my nerves. Honestly, I just needed something strong to take the edge off. I watched the windows the whole time, though, half expecting them to appear at any moment. After a few too many drinks, I flagged down a cab. And guess who showed up? Same damn car from yesterday. At first, I thought maybe they were just taking a break from their undercover act, but this time they didn't just keep driving. After the cab dropped me off, I turned around, and sure enough, there it was. The same car, parked half a block away from my house. I didn't know what to do. Calling the cops didn't even cross my mind. What good would that do? They'd just disappear like they always did. It's been 3 hours now, and they're still out there. I haven't been watching them the entire time, so I don't know if anyone's in the car. The thought of it's just too much. I can't sleep. There's no way I'll be able to tonight. It's about 2 a.m. now. My phone buzzed. A message from a private number. Leave your house. Don't use the front door. They're still there. Come to the all-night diner 5 blocks away. Don't drive. They'll know. Be quick. They're coming in soon. Don't get followed. Leave your lights on. I froze when I read it. What the hell? Who was texting me? They're coming in. I didn't want to stick around to find out, so I followed the message. I was paranoid, tired, and more than a little buzzed, but I grabbed my jacket and slipped out through the back door. I took my other laptop with me for some reason. Maybe I thought it would help. I climbed the fence, carefully making my way to the diner. I didn't know what else to do. After 40 minutes of hiding in bushes every time a car passed, I finally made it. The diner was open, a handful of people inside. Drunk college kids, truckers, and one guy in a hoodie sitting in the back, typing away on a laptop. He didn't look like anything to worry about, so I took a chance. I walked up and sat down at his table. He looked up, almost annoyed. "Hi, what do you want?" "You texted me," I replied. There was a pause. I was about to second-guess myself, thinking I might have walked up to the wrong guy. But then he spoke again. "Right? They follow you?" "No, I don't think so." He nodded and then started laughing like this whole situation was some joke. "Man, you screwed up, didn't you?" I couldn't help but agree. I told him what happened, how I ended up in this mess. He just stared at me like I was an idiot. "What were you trying to find then? What was so important?" "Nothing, I swear. I just did it for the hell of it," I stammered. He laughed again, clearly finding this all amusing. "Well, that's fucking lame. Would have been cooler if you were a spy or something." I was done with the small talk. "Who are you? How do you know they're after me? Who are they?" He sighed and leaned back. All right, I can't tell you who they are. I don't know either, but I'll tell you one thing. They don't have good intentions." I blinked. "Great. How do you know about them?" I asked. "They came after me too," he said, looking down at the table. "One minute, I'm reading about demons on the moon, and the next, my door gets kicked down. This was months ago. I skipped town." I was trying to keep up with him. "Wait, what do you mean? They tried to kill me," he said, flatly. I was shocked. "And you're telling me you just watched the links? That was it?" He raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, why? No warning? No men in suits? Nothing?" He shook his head. "Nah, I just left. Got out of there before they could get to me." I was still reeling. They didn't do that to me. They just came by, took my laptop, and gave me a warning. His eyes widened. "Really?" "Yeah. They said something about priorities too. Weird as hell." He thought for a moment, clearly processing. Then he asked the question that set my stomach on fire. "What did you type at the prompt?" What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "The one with the 4 links. What did you type?" "What also seeks me." I couldn't even figure out why I had typed that. He recoiled slightly, as though I had said something horrible. "No." He abruptly closed his laptop and stood up. "We've been here too long. I can't talk about this anymore. Just go to a motel or something tonight." And then, just like that, he walked out. No goodbye, no explanation. I had no idea who he was, and I had no idea why he knew so much. The only thing I was left with was a name, Jackson. Probably fake. I didn't argue. I was too tired, too confused, and way too drunk to deal with anything else. I left the diner, trying to keep a low profile, and started looking for a motel. Saturday. It's officially Saturday now, though I'm not sure it matters. It's 8 a.m., and I've barely slept. My body is physically drained, but my mind is wide awake, buzzing with anxiety. Something feels horribly off, like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, just waiting for it to crumble beneath me. I turned on the TV, hoping the noise would help clear my mind, but instead, I was met with something that only deepened the unease. A news report. A man found strangled to death in a KFC bathroom. The worst part? The victim was one of the guys who'd come to my house that night. The same ones who took my laptop. I froze. What the hell is going on? Before I could process the news any further, my phone buzzed. Another private message. My heart started to race as I opened it. Go to the swimming pool on 5th Street. In the men's locker room, go to locker 128. The combination is 122733. Further instructions are inside. Do this before this text gets intercepted. Don't bring your phone. Of course, I'd been so paranoid about everything, but I still hadn't thought about ditching my phone. What an idiot. I looked outside my motel window, and there it was. The car that's been tailing me, parked across the street. I could see the two men getting out, both wearing gloves. One of them was carrying a briefcase.
They were walking toward the motel entrance. I knew I had to act fast. I quickly emailed this information to myself and a friend, just in case I didn't make it. Then I dropped my phone in the toilet. Ridiculous, but it felt necessary. After that, I was left with only one thing: getting rid of my laptop too. There was no turning back now. I felt the weight of it all settle on me. But as much as I wanted to break down, I knew I had to keep moving. This was bigger than just me. I glanced once more at the men walking into the motel lobby. Then I ran for the back exit. The next part happens in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm on a plane to Scottsdale, Arizona now. I haven't left the state in 6 years, and I certainly didn't expect my first trip in so long to be like this. Running for my life with no plan, no destination, just trying to get out. But let me back up a bit. This is how I ended up here. Right after I got rid of my laptop, I heard someone trying to pick the lock on my motel room door. I froze. Panic set in, but the human instinct to survive kicked in hard. My mind went into overdrive. I needed to get out, and fast. The balcony was the only option. It was a second-floor room, and my heart raced as I climbed over the railing. Miraculously, I didn't break anything. I looked around and immediately started to make a decision. Run or hide? Neither seemed good enough. That's when I saw it. A cab parked at the far end of the parking lot. The driver was sitting inside. I didn't have much time. I bolted toward the car, tapping on the window. "Mr. Horvat?" the driver asked, looking confused. It wasn't Mr. Horvat, but I didn't correct him. It was the only name I could think of on the spot.
"Yeah, that's me," I said, trying to sound calm, even though I felt anything but. "I finished early. Let's go." The driver looked at me with suspicion, but I couldn't afford for him to second-guess me. I jumped in the back seat and we sped off. As we left the parking lot, I glanced back. There they were, the two men from the motel, now on the balcony where I had just been. They were looking directly at me, their eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses, but I could feel their gaze. The relief I had felt from escaping the room quickly faded. I wasn't out of danger yet. I thought about the message I had received. Do this before this text gets intercepted. I was still on a clock, and they probably had already traced my movements by now. They wouldn't be far behind. The cab ride was short, but it felt like an eternity. We finally pulled up to a rundown swimming pool on 5th Street, exactly where the message had told me to go. I didn't waste any time. I rushed to the locker room, keeping my head low. The locker was easy to find. 12 left, 27 right, 33 left. I punched in the combination, and the locker swung open. Inside, there was an old BlackBerry phone and a crumpled envelope. I grabbed the envelope first. Inside, there was a plane ticket to an unknown destination, $2,000 in cash, and a sticky note with scribbled handwriting, check phone, password, snake tracks. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the BlackBerry and powered it on. It was an ancient model, the kind I used to beg my parents for when I was a kid. But this was no nostalgic trip. This was real life. My life. The phone booted up slowly. There was a message waiting for me, but it wasn't just a normal text. It was a video, encrypted. I almost didn't want to open it, but I had no choice. As I waited for the file to decrypt, a sudden sense of dread filled my chest. This was only the beginning, and whatever came next, I had no idea if I was ready. I didn't know what to make of what I just heard. I'd been running on adrenaline for hours, and my brain wasn't processing things clearly anymore. The guy in front of me, the one who didn't get strangled, was sitting on the bed, nursing his wounds and looking like he'd been through hell. Meanwhile, I sat across from him, barely able to keep my eyes open. The words he was saying, though, kept slicing through the fog of exhaustion. Might as well let you know what's going on. His voice was gravelly, but steady. He rubbed at his busted lip as if lost in thought for a second. The silence between us stretched on, thick with the weight of everything that had happened so far. But eventually, he started speaking again. About 4 years ago, there was an incident in the Paris catacombs. I blinked. The Paris catacombs? I'd never heard anything about that, but at this point, it was hard to believe anything could surprise me. 4 teenagers decided it would be a good idea to